All right. Hi, everyone, and welcome to day 8. I'm going to try to keep it short and sweet today. I'll do my best. And just as a quick recap, we've been building an artificial intelligence application that is cross platform with the goal of making AI more accessible to basically anyone. Uh, I'm not think I don't think I'm going to be doing demos today. I'm just going to go pretty fast. Kind of like as a recap from yesterday and a couple days before, we've been trying to get this Puppeteer library working. And the whole problem of Puppeteer, which recap allows us to manipulate websites offline, not offline, but like outside of the browser. Like the whole conundrum there is that it doesn't run on the browser. It needs a separate process. So what I work on today was deploying this particular worker node into its own service, right? So what we have here is kind of like the GitLab deployment that we've seen in the past, which basically GitLab allows us to also deploy the server to Heroku, right? And this was from a couple days ago. And the second step was that I have to kind of like start working on is figuring out how to run the actual worker node, right? And yesterday we finished the worker node, but it was working only locally meaning my machine. But now we want to run it somewhere, right? I did consider running Heroku maybe, but regardless, what we need is to have kind of like a custom set of libraries. And the reasoning is that Heroku is pretty great for generic web applications. But in this particular case, we need a bunch of prerequisites, right? Like for instance, Puppeteer uses the V8 engine, and that's pretty heavy. So the technology that we can use to solve this problem is called Docker. And Docker is pretty much like a virtual machine that is efficient and that allows you to run different operating systems or operating systems with very specific packages and environments pre-created. So yeah, kind of I looked into Docker and I create a Docker Hub account. Docker Hub is kind of like this website that allows you to publish your Docker images for them to be easily downloaded and then used. And the Docker file is just a text file. And then I went to Google Cloud. I chose Google Cloud for this particular example, mostly because Google Cloud seems to be very good at running Docker images. I mean, they pretty much invented, technologies like Kubernetes that are heavily based on Docker, and they're pretty competent and componentizing their infrastructure in containers. And so basically, I thought that like Google Cloud would be a good option for this, but like all the functionality is also supported in like Amazon, Microsoft, and whatever. So yeah, I basically created my Google Cloud account and just started a machine. And then with that machine started, basically all I did was I ran the Docker image that got published to Docker Hub from Google Cloud. And then yeah, so I actually took a look at logging technologies, and yeah, the idea here is I just put a kind of like screenshot of Bunyan. I don't know if that's pronounced correctly, versus a couple other different logging technologies that exist out there. And mostly logging is a technology to write stuff to a file, just to see what the server is doing when you're not directly looking at the machine, which is the case with Google Cloud. So I kind of like, I took this screenshot as I was working through the day because I tried to find like a logging framework that was great or why not. But all of them are just really tricky. Like, like they all have like their own, like infrastructure and whatever. And I just wanted something super, super simple. So actually what I end up doing is, even though I did some investigation, I end up doing just logging to console. I created a wrapper class for logging, and then it's literally all it does is just logs to console. Which I found it pretty easy to do. And then this is just kind of like me remote connecting to the Google Cloud instance, like to the actual computer running on the cloud, and kind of like running the comments to to get the Docker image and basically start this remote server. And then I was able to basically run in this Docker image Puppeteer, which is basically the exact same code from yesterday, but rather than running it locally, I run it in a Google Cloud machine. That's pretty much it, plus the investigation on logging and perhaps giving it some thought to what platform to use and whether if I should use Docker containers, which I end up choosing. I'm not even sure. I mean, the other option would be to not use Docker, but yeah, anyways, that's almost take it for granted in infrastructure these days. And then the next interesting thing is that my wife sent me an invite to a webinar that was happening today. And the name of the webinar is actually how to run a successful AI startup. So I was like, all right, fine. Like, I don't think it gets better than that. You know, like someone is going to tell me how to run a successful AI startup. So I probably should, attend that webinar. So I did, and it was kind of like last minute because, like it was 1 hour before it started. So I pretty much like went in. I did actually had to pay $20, which I was surprised. So apparently, like paid webinars are a thing. So whatever. And yeah, so just to give some background, this particular webinar was from Madrona Venture Labs, from their CTO. His name is Jay, and basically I live on the Seattle area, which and Madrona. I'm not sure if this is correct, but I'm almost certain that Madrona is the biggest VC firm, at least for technology on the area. I might be wrong, but that's my naive understanding of the VC on the Seattle area is that they're the biggest ones. So, and they have like an accelerator kind of type of deal called Madrona Venture Labs. So yeah, those are the authors of this webinar. And the name of the talk was Anatomy of an AI Startup by Jay Barlott, who is the CTO from Madrona Venture Labs. I don't want to steal his content, so I'll just show a couple slides, but also like he mentioned that all his content is public anyways in his blog post. And I'll make sure to link to Jay's blog post, which I thought it was really interesting, but I'll just mention the highlights, which I think are relevant for the stuff we're building. So yeah, productize. So the first kind of like the first overviews, it's kind of like mentioning that AI can be applied to a lot of industries, verticals, and things around those things. And then like Jay mentioned, that is AI is a super exciting area to be invested in. I think I've mentioned this in the previous videos, anyways. And one of the things that he mentioned is that there has never been a better time to start an ML company. So if this doesn't work out, we'll just blame Jay, I guess. No, just kidding. And then actually something super interesting is that he mentioned that he can classify AI companies in two. And one is companies that focus on horizontally providing services. And this would be kind of like an AI company that it's not specialized in something, but it's more like a generic framework to do something AI or whatever, right? And then the other one are vertical companies that you can think of something solving a very specific problem, like, I'm just going to make bookings of Airbnb better with artificial intelligence, right? That would be a vertical. And actually, Jay mentioned that Jay mentioned not to try to do horizontal AI startups, right? So I guess we started on the wrong track. Yeah, well, he didn't say not to do it, but like, he mentioned that they're kind of trickier in some ways because, your customer will have to be, well, some characteristics are your customer will have to be technical. You'll need highly technical teams, which at least we have that. I do feel like I'm mostly technical. And, there's also a lot of like platforms out there, like, like on Azure, like Datadog, Alteryx or whatever, right? And so the net from his presentation was it's a tough area for ML startups seeking VC investment. Anyways, so that's us, yay. But then, he went on to vertical ML companies, and he had like a lot of great points. I'll link the kind of like what links to his content just on our on the video, on the bottom of the video. But anyways, I thought it would be a good idea just to send Jay an email. So this is the email that I sent, and he's like, hey, I just kind of like started working full time on an AI startup, doing exactly what you told us not to do, which is a horizontal AI startup. And we'll see how that goes, but definitely kind of like looking forward at the very least to get perspectives first from someone else. I think I really do appreciate advice, even if it might end up being contradictory to what we're doing. So I'm looking forward just to chatting with Jay and exploring that as well. All right, I'll do comments and questions one of these days, maybe tomorrow. Hopefully this one is just a short video, especially after yesterday's, which went pretty long. Thanks for joining, and I'll keep you posted.